Hola, hello, bienvenido, and welcome to the Clearbirth Podcast. This is your host, Annette Perel. And today I have with me the beautiful Natalia Hales and Ash Spivaks, the authors of Why Did No One Tell Me This? Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us. We're so happy to be here.
Oh, this is wonderful. We'll dive into the book in a little bit, but I just wanted to start with asking a few questions. And the first question is, what career did you wanted to do when you were in grade school, high school, and college?
Love that question. Well, when I was in grade school, I don't think I wanted to be, maybe there was a period where I wanted to be an actress, but really I spent a lot of time writing books. So,
Oh.
yes, I would write books. I would staple them together, make the about the author, and then put a dollar sign on top of the book.
You knew your value early. It's like, there is value in this.
So that's what I spent a lot of my childhood doing. And then I went through a period in high school where, I don't know, I sort of felt I was like in the Great Depression of 18 years old and felt really stuck from where I grew up. And so didn't really have an understanding of what my options were, and transitioned into college, really having this idea of wanting to figure out what made me happy versus having like a career and feeling content felt enough.
Okay.
So I never really had very strong career. I wasn't sure. I was very lost for a very long time. Put it that way.
Which sounds all relative and normal, like,
Yeah.
right? For those years.
Yeah, yes, I was not a kid. Yeah. So.
And in college?
No, that was
same thing.
That was transitioning. I went to college. I studied comparative arts, which is like, what is that? But actually was like the most foundational training for doula work. So it worked out, all the things they always come around. So
Yeah.
I'm really appreciative of that. But I studied that in anthropology, and really it was just like I have no idea who I am still phase or what I want. So
But it did all bring you back to this, which is great.
it does. That's true.
Yes.
Now that I'm here, I'm like, oh yeah, I see how all those things connect.
That's things. Mm-hmm. And Natalia?
I actually wanted to be a doctor when I was like little, and I would say like middle school, not quite high school, but like, I don't know, 10, 12. I wanted to be a doctor, and I have no idea what happened. At some point I was like, no, that's not for me. And then in high school, I actually wanted to be a photographer. And I was actually going to move to New York right after high school to study photography at FIT. I applied, I sent a portfolio. I was in, everything was ready. And I had a boyfriend in Colombia, and I decided to stay.
I don't know this story. I've never heard this before.
I never told my dad, which he was in New York. He was the one that was like telling me like to come. And I never told him it was because of my boyfriend, but now I can say it because who cares? But I ended up just studying literature in Colombia, and I'm like no regrets because I had the best time of my life. Those 4 years were literally like a party. All I did was party, and it was so fun. And so when I was in college, I wanted to be a journalist. And so I did end up moving to New York right after college, and I wanted to study journalism in Colombia, which I never ended up doing. But,
Oh, okay. That is great.
Place.
Yeah. Like most of us, right? I can totally attest to when I was little, I wanted to be a doctor. And then I wanted to be the person at one point who typed in the end credits of movies, because
that's an interesting one.
I used to write all of the people's names. Like, I loved writing, but didn't know what that career was. And I was like, I want to do that. That was like part of it. So all over the place as well. And I was like, is that a thing? Like, whose job is that? And I don't know why. I just knew that I liked writing and I wanted to do that. So definitely that. So, before doing this work as doulas, what were you doing before that? Like what work were you doing? What jobs did you have? Ashley, you want to start?
Uh, sure. I worked in the service industry
Mm.
for a handful of years while being in nutrition school. Um, and so I was working, so I was in the service industry as I was studying, and then started working with clients as a holistic health coach while also working for a startup within the clean eating media space called Clean
Mhm.
Plates, where we assess different restaurants and how clean they were based on the ingredients they were using, where they were sourcing from. Um, and yeah, that was that. And I dabbled in directing. So actually, I forgot this. This was true. When I first graduated college, there was a period of time where I wanted to be a starving artist, like not just an artist, like a starving artist that lived in a loft in the East Village and ate like beans from a can. I was naked all the time. I had studied something called Suzuki and Viewpoints, which is still like my fundamentals for everything
Mhm.
in life, which was composition work. And so I was doing physical theater while I was also in school and also waiting tables. So
Oh,
I forgot about that stage.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That sounds like every 80s, 90 movie, living in a loft, East Village, like totally New York,
yeah, totally.
definitely.
Except for the fact that I got there and was like in, my tiny nothing apartment in the East Village and was like, I can't do this. This isn't for, I need my own room. I actually need a room. Like this
Yes,
doesn't,
exactly. This is not conducive to how you live in the city.
yeah.
Definitely.
So
And Natalia?
So when I first moved to New York, I actually worked in a chocolate shop, and it's this. I think it's still there. This small place in Soho called Keys Chocolates, the best chocolate in the city. If you're ever on Spring Street,
Oh,
I recommend it. I mean, it's like $4 for like a bowl of chocolate, but it's like the best. And I
yeah.
learned it was really fun because I learned to like make all the ganache and the chocolates and stuff. And I was there for like maybe like a few like 6 months or so. And then I started working doing translation work. I went to Hunter College, and did
Hmm.
studies in translation, and interpretation. And so then I started freelancing doing that. And I had like a weird job in Jersey at some company doing some in-house translation for them. And then I got like a job in the city for this translation company. And I was there for like 5 or 6 years
Oh,
actually,
wow.
like a bunch of different jobs within the company, including everything like translation, project management, sales, account management. Ended up like the last thing I did was working with technology. So it was like fun because just kind of kept like growing, but
Learning,
I really
exactly.
did know that it was just not my thing.
Uh-huh.
So the whole time I was just kind of searching for what I wanted to do, which eventually led me to nutrition too. And I studied nutrition while I was working there. And then that led to the doula work too.
So it was nutrition, because that's my next question. It's like, what led you to doula work? So it was nutrition. What about nutrition made you start thinking about pregnant people?
Yeah, it's funny because Ash and I mean, we've told this story to each other a million times through the years, but we have like similar stories in the sense that we both studied nutrition and
we
started
went
kind
to
of
the same school
doing.
too.
We went,
Oh,
We
really?
didn't know each other, but
yeah,
Oh, fascinating.
yeah.
yeah. And so when I started doing that, I quickly realized I wanted to work with women. And that was kind of like the thing in my head that I was like, okay, I don't know anything, but this is what I do know. And then eventually one day I decided to quit my job, and I was like, I'm just gonna kind of like quit and like figure this out and not be here because I just felt like I couldn't move forward having to be in that 9 to 5 job every day.
Yes.
And so that really kind of gave me the push to be like, okay, figure this out. And I had, finished kind of like the nutrition program, and I was kind of like setting myself up to be like, okay, how am I going to find clients and like do this for real? And then I met some friends, and we went into this kind of like retreat in the Catskills. And there was a girl there that was about to do a doula training in the city, like a couple weeks after that retreat. And we started talking about it, and I had already kind of like looked into it a little bit. And as soon as she said, "Oh, I'm doing the doula training," I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna do it with you."
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And I did the training with Deborah Pascali at Birthday Presence in
That's
Soho.
who I took my training with as well.
And you know, like Deborah, like after being
Yes.
like trained with Deborah, you're like in love.
I
This
wa-
is
in
it.
love with birth.
Like,
I want to have. I remember I went home and I told my boyfriend at the time, I want to have 8 babies and I want to have them all in the living room and like in the caftan. And he was like, yeah, no. Deborah gets you in that flowy, lovey mood where it's just like, this is incredible. And you're like, yes,
yeah.
yes, it is.
Yeah. It's like
And
basically, yeah, that's it.
yeah.
Then
And
after,
how about,
like, this is what I'm doing forever. This is my
yeah.
calling. This is it. And I mean, and then yeah, pretty soon after I started doing it, I like there were a couple friends that were pregnant at the time, so I ended up like going to their births, which was very special because those were my first couple births. And then I joined the collective, and that's when I
That's
met
your
all of
great.
you.
Yes. Yes. And Ash, how about you?
I so I was fascinated by what I was learning in nutrition school, mostly from the biology physiology perspective, and just what I realized that actually having the education about how my body worked was what was making the biggest impact in lifestyle changes in my life, and realized that like that was what I wanted to get across with the clients that I was working with, and found that it was really hard to figure out how to like get them to dig into something more than like I have a wedding coming up, so I want to lose weight or X, Y, or Z, which nothing wrong with that, but they're not like deeper sustainable changes. And so I thought, well, pregnancy is an interesting time where people are, have a motive outside of just themselves, and 9 months, 10 months is like a really nice incubation period,
Yes.
gestational period for lifestyle changes as well. And so that's what got me first interested in it, is using that as a hook to work with people more deeply. And then the more that I realized, I was like, oh my God, I know nothing about childbirth. And also as someone who like likely will have children at some point, it's kind of fucked up that I don't know anything about childbirth
That,
and no one told
yes.
me this before. Hence,
Mm-hmm.
why did no one tell me? So I decided to do a childbirth education certification, thinking that I was going to shift my nutrition practice just to focus prenatally, going into it being like, one of my best friends who's now a midwife was a doula at the time. And so I knew what a doula was and was sort of like, nah, that's not really for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
here, I'm like really I'm like, I love the education, like that's the part. And as I was going through that training, I was going through my own like personal journey of moving through a lot of stuff, and really just had one of
Uh-huh.
those moments of like, oh my gosh, I am going to be a doula, and started learning what was like happening in our hospital systems, and really just wanting to dig in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Oh,
I
that's so
left,
great.
yeah, and I had that like epiphany that, and left my job. I applied to the collective and was
Mm-hmm.
like, if I get in, I'm leaving my job. And I got in,
I,
thankfully,
yep.
and then left my job like immediately. And that
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Full disclosure, we met at the collective,
Full
and that's how I know
disclosure.
these wonderful women, right?
And
And
more disclosure that we've told you this before, but I'm going to say it again, that Annette was both of our mentors. And the
yes.
only reason why, I mean, I still go into interviews like shaking in my boots, but in my
Uh-huh.
mind, I'd be like, my mantra was like, I have Annette. I have Annette. I've not touched any birds. I've never had kids. And that's been so many birds. She's like a genius at this. So she's in my pocket. So it's all good.
Yes,
I have Annette.
exactly.
And at birds
Exactly.
too, I'd be like,
Yes.
I have Annette. I have Annette.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
thank you. I only got here
Oh,
because of you.
oh, thank you. That's the one thing that I was always like, listen, that's going to be the key. Having mentorship and having someone that you can be like, what is this? I've never heard this. Your clients feel more secure. When I first started, I went on interviews and it was just like hit or miss.
Yeah.
And having known, like having a mentor to be like, I got this. I have someone that builds confidence in your clients to be like, okay, I like her and she has someone else that she can confer to. So that's wonderful.
Oh,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, without a doubt, like I love this book.
Oh, thank you. That
I
really
mean,
means so much coming from you, truly.
I
We were so
I
nervous for you to get it. We were like, oh my God, what if she
no,
doesn't like
no. I mean, just everything from the graphics, the style, just the ease at which you can read it. It just, I was like, yes, this would be something that Ash and Natalia would do because it's so you. And I could see the both of you in this book that I was just like, oh my goodness. And the conversation, it's like I was having a conversation with the both of you when I was reading this book. And I was just like, this is incredible because not only easy reading, because we know most people will pick up a book at 7 months of pregnancy and then try to figure it all out in 3 months, right? And then be like, oh my God. But this speaks to the beginning, the middle, the end. It just speaks to every aspect of birth. And also in a way that I think that people can process the information. Like there are other books out there which I will not name that are just too fear-based, right? And this is so different in the sense that it's like it's more empowering. It's like, hey, some crazy shit's gonna happen. But guess what? You could do it, like, with that little edge. And I was just like, yes, this is what's been missing, I feel, from the conversation all along, like a book like this, because we know there are thousands of books out there and it's the few that we recommend to our clients. So I mean, great job, ladies. I have to say this is incredible. We'll get into the book, but I just have a question before that. Like what advice do you wish you received before you started writing this book?
I,
But
this is silly, but I would say don't quit coffee because I quit coffee years ago and I can't drink it anymore because it makes me crazy. But I wrote the book at night. I mean, I only worked at night because that's when my daughter Maya is asleep, usually, mostly, not always, but but so I always worked at night after, just being awake all day. So I was pretty tired and with no coffee that was hard to do.
I can imagine. Oh, Ash.
mine would be that just to get to build in some time to step away from the pages and then come back to it.
Yeah.
We got really tight towards the end in terms of deadlines. And of course, as everyone says, every time you read it, you can pick out the million things that you want to change, etc.
Definitely.
But at some point you do have to just
Yeah.
let it go. But I will say there is something to building in time to however you're scheduling when things are due, to give yourself time to really just not look at it for a week and then come back and read it again. Because you definitely miss things, and our editor probably wanted to kill us when after it was about to go to print, I was like, we need to redo these pages, please let us redo these pages.
True story. True story.
Oh my gosh.
And Natalia, when Natalia probably wanted to kill me 100 million times for similar reasons, but
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, how was it working together writing this book? Like,
Well, we have been working together for so many years that we know each other so well, and we had done so many things before this or that got us to this place together. So there were definitely challenging times because, we're both writing and then the other one rewrites the whole thing and then the other one wants to rewrite it. And we did that like a million times and it was exhausting sometimes. But I would say that overall it was so easy and I felt that mostly we were on the same page the whole time. And I think because we just know each other so well, and we could just tell each other, like, you're driving me crazy, like, I'm like, stop editing or whatever it is, and we could just be honest with each other. And so
that was pretty easy. But so one of the other things while I'm reading this book, because there's so much in here and great, like I'm curious as to what got left out, because I don't think that there's any part of this book where I would go, oh, it needs a chapter on. I can't think of anything that is missing.
That's
So,
cool to hear.
yeah. So, was there a lot that was left out or taken out, or?
I'd say one of the bigger things that would have been nice would be if we could have had some more illustrations to demonstrate some of the things.
Okay.
We worked with a beautiful illustrator who was very kind and
illustrations
patient
are
with
beautiful.
us. Yeah. But, we could not afford to have her do like every page as we would have liked. So I think having a couple more illustrations to demonstrate some of the anatomy may have been cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, that comes to mind first. Obviously, like, you could do a whole bit more on like periods, or a whole bit more on the history of reproductive health in America.
Yes.
But then it comes down to like, are those meant to be their own books? And in something for birth, what is useful and what is not, and how much can you go into given X number of pages? So
I did find that particular history fascinating when you put it in there about midwives and that whole section. And I was just like, it's something that I feel that, when you're a doula, you read all of the books, all of this, but when you're talking to clients, they have no understanding of the history of how birth happened before and how birth ended up in the hospital. So even though it wasn't a big section in the book, I think it's just the right amount of information for people to start going, I want to look into that a little bit more and find the history. I mean, I loved the part where you talked about the midwives, the rural midwives here, and then the midwives who were getting trained. It's something that I think there's so much stigma and around midwifery now that it kind of helps demystify it, because people are often like, oh, no, not for my first, but
you're like,
not for my first, but for my second. And we're always, as doulas, going, wait. So you want to have a bad experience or experience that may not be ideal when you can just speak with a home birth midwife, or they have this thought of, oh, a home birth midwife, that what does she do? Like they think that she just shows up with her hands and that's it, like not understanding the training. So I love that part of the book. And I also love the way that you framed like how your body works, and the part where you said that every time you have a period, you're practicing pregnancy. Your body is practicing. And that shifted for me how to explain this to people, right? Because the biggest thing is the fear. And that was incredible. I love that philosophy. And I love the work that you have people do to think about how their birth would look with, their friends. And then how really does that change now that you're pregnant? Because of course we think before, you're like, oh, there's going to be this person, that person, and this person. And then you get pregnant, realize, well, that they're not really supportive in that area. So I love the little exercises that you put in to have people kind of evaluate who's on their team. And even with their doctors, of just thinking, well, does my doctor really support this? Because I think, as you know, as doulas, we know that a lot of times their clients don't find out until it's too late that their doctors don't support certain things. So I think having this in the beginning really gets people thinking about it a lot sooner than they would. And so, I mean, there's just I can go on and on about so many things in this book that I just found fascinating, even from the start. It was just like, here we're going to set the tone. It's almost like the girlfriend that you wish you had in high school that could say, hey, let me tell you some things about your body that you never knew. And so what is for you, for the both of you, like, what was your favorite part of the book? Like your favorite section that you put in?
I would say, I mean, the biggest, I mean, all of it I love, and I feel like all of it was is very important and was very important for me as we wrote it. But I think like the first section of the book, I was very special to me and I think to us because we had that doula practice in New York together for so long, and a lot of kind of like the reasons why we wrote this book like come from that experiences, those experiences that we shared working as doulas together with so many families. And the biggest thing that we kept going on back to at the time was like there is like a big component missing in this whole preparation that people are going through to have this experience, and it's the mindset. Like nobody's telling them like you have to pay attention to what's going in your mind and that
Yes.
connection to your mind and your body and all that that we tend to like ignore and forget. And so what we really strive to do in that first section of the book was like have people like start here, just like look into this, like go deep, dive deep into your soul, your body, your mind, your gut, and just like as you said, like we just have those exercises as an invitation for people to really like explore themselves in a
Yeah.
way that I think a lot of us don't do often enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. How about you, Ash?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for everything you said about the book. Again, it just really means so much coming from you. So thank you.
Oh.
Um, man, which part? Well, this one wasn't necessarily like fun to write, but the history section was definitely like the part that I spent the most time on, and was the page that I was like, we have to redo it right before that it was ready,
Okay.
and that like I would like to expand upon a lot more. So that's definitely part of it. And then the other is, I'd say, either finding like thinking through like the illustrations to match the concepts we were talking about and how to make them like less anatomical and more fun and approachable. And I guess same goes with some of like the headers and the language.
Yes.
I'm very cheesy and I like me a lot of puns, and a lot of them got taken
Me
out.
too. Me too. Oh no.
Yeah, our editor was like, no, no, no.
Oh, I would have loved. Well, there's always part two.
Yeah.
I have to say too that one of the other sections in the book that I thought was just a great, thoughtful addition is you had Morgan Richardson. I was about to say something else. Morgan Richardson write a section of the book for the LGBTQIA community, and like explain why that was important to put in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, for us.
And just to add, she wrote it with her wife, Alexandra, as well.
Yes, Alexandra. Sorry. Yes, that's right. They did write it together. Sorry.
But it was always important for us to write a book that was or is inclusive and that spoke to as much as we could everybody, including everybody in the spectrum of like queerness.
Yes.
And we know that there's so many specific challenges for that community when it comes to reproductive health. And so, and we know, Morgan and Alexandra work with specifically with that community and have been through the experience themselves of like pregnancy and having a baby. And we just wanted to kind of like bring someone like them to kind of share some of those things that Ash and I maybe don't have firsthand experience with, and have that invitation and understanding as part of the book too.
I loved it when I started reading it. I was like, didn't know, and when I got to the page and I saw, I was like, of course, yeah, this makes sense, right? To have this in here, but the questions that they came up with and that they answered are things that, as cisgendered heterosexual people, that we often complain about, but not think about when it's LGBTQIA and how invasive and intrusive that those comments are. Because, everyone's always in a woman's uterus as to begin with. When are you going to have a child? Or don't have one too early, or all of that. And then when you are pregnant, like, when are you having another one? It's just like all of these questions, but for them to put those questions in there, I love the fact that it will get people to realize that That's none of your business.
Yeah.
And it is, unless these are your friends, you don't ask strangers these questions about how they did it, the ways they did it, how long it took them, how much it cost them. It it's just something to get people really aware that these are people. This is not a zoo. This is not something that you're like fascinated. You're the first queer person I can ask you. No, you cannot. No, you should not. And even often when I tell women about birth stories, and when people are telling them birth stories and them telling them negative birth stories, like I often tell them no. Like you don't want to hear a negative birth story. And this just puts the light for more people to go, I have to pause and not ask these questions. And it's not okay to do. This is a community that, is being so discriminated against and that needs support. And I think that when people read this, that they will have a lot more allies in that respect of saying, yeah, that's just not okay to ask. And it puts people on the front street really to go, yeah, I shouldn't do that to them at all. So that was great. I loved seeing that in there as well. Yeah. So I did kind of hint a little bit. Will there be a part 2?
Well, we hope there will be. We're just talking about it last night. We're thinking about like what part 2 looks like. But there's nothing, concrete right now. But yeah, hopefully there will be.
Yeah. Well, I just have to say again, like, bravo, ladies. This book like really knocked it out of the park. I have to say that I will definitely be putting this on my website and definitely be telling people as soon as they're pregnant, they need to pick up this book because there is so much that people don't know about their bodies and even don't learn throughout the process, right? It's like when we talk about, your cervix thinning and effacing, and they're like, what? So having that kind of information in there that talks about not just the hormonal changes, but just like your relationship changes and how that's okay and how you should tune in to yourself and tune in to your partner, I think is, like I said, I can't say it enough, that this is what's missing out there in literature right now. And you ladies did an awesome job with this book. Really, you should be proud. You should be proud. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for help showing us the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's you're giving me way too much credit.
No, it's not. What I said before is so absolutely true. So
yeah. Plus, also, credit at all. Like, you are the reason why we started working together, because we were both mentees, and we went to a meeting at your house, and then we went for coffee, and that's
right across the street.
Oh wow!
We went for coffee right after being in at your house, and we just connected and became friends and started working together. So thank you.
Okay, I'll take that.
Take it all.
Yes. I'm feeling the love right now. Feeling so much love. Thank you so much. This next section is what I like to call just daily inspiration. I don't know if you ladies follow me or see me on Instagram, but I'm always writing an inspirational quote to help get me through the day. And so in this section, I like to ask the both of you, like, what book, film, show, or podcast that is inspiring you right now?
I've been listening to Where Should We Begin with Esther Perel.
Yes, I recently discovered Esther Perel.
Yeah.
Same last name. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, it's just such an interesting, I really like how she helps couples communicate. And just from listening to it, I feel like I'm learning to communicate better with my partner.
Yeah.
And so I've been just kind of like obsessively listening to it. Roger's like, this is kind of depressing. I'm like, no, it's teaching stuff. And
exactly. Yeah, it's funny when something hits you and you're just like, I'm going to listen to all of the episodes and get it all in. And I do like her podcast too, because like you said, it does teach you how to communicate, but it also teaches you like what's your trigger, right?
Right.
Like what is that trigger that's getting you? And then you start thinking about it and you're like, oh yeah, so when I was 5, you're just
Mhm.
like, oh yeah,
Totally, totally. It's like
yeah,
you're going to therapy, but you're
yeah.
not.
No,
Yeah.
you're not. Therapy for free,
Yeah.
really. Yeah. How about you, Ash?
Well, I've been reading 2 books right now. One is Holistic Anatomy by Pip Walker, but it's actually a very digestible, fun book. And it was
Okay.
one of my favorites when I was in nutrition school. And I recently found it again and decided to read it. And I highly recommend it.
Mhm.
Fascinating. And then the other is Dr. Jill Blakeway from the Unova Center in New York. Just came out with a new book. I guess not just anymore. It was a bunch of months ago, but this year came out with a new book called Energy Medicine, and it's awesome. I highly recommend it. And she really parses through what is energy medicine, or understanding of it from a Western perspective, and does work with different energy masters, if you will, in different parts of the world, and brings their perspective into the conversation. So it's really fascinating to think about. And I love what she says. She says something about like how now, back, however many years ago, you talk about like the mind body connection, or, the brain gut connection, or any of those things. And people would have laughed,
Yes,
laughed at you,
Yeah.
like, no way, no. And that like is energy fields, etc., going to be the next one of those where,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, in however many years, people are like, oh yeah, duh, like, so
Yeah.
interesting perspective. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. That sounds really fascinating. And then the other question is like, what is there a quote that inspires you that you read often, or one that just comes to you in times that you're stressed or that helps you through your day?
Nice.
Natalia?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead, Ash.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I don't have a specific quote, but I more so pause and try and close my eyes and breathe, and then recount things that I feel grateful for, and like open up my palms, and then just really take the time to try and turn the conversation around to like, okay, here's what's in front of me,
Center.
here's what I have, and I do that on repeat. That's a newer practice, but it's been really helpful actually.
Yes, I can see how that is, especially now, right? Because
Yeah,
our
totally.
minds tend to go off on all of the other possibilities. So taking that moment just to sit and be still and opening your palms to receive what's coming and also giving. So yeah, that's great. How about you, Natalia?
It's not a quote either, but it's something I do with Maya, with my daughter. And I actually recently shared about it on Instagram. And it's this little kind of mantra that we say together, and I turned it into a song. But it's basically, I'm safe, I'm calm, I am loved, I'm okay. And we just kind of
Oh,
fingers and sing the little song together. I do it when she's having a tantrum, or when I'm having a tantrum.
yes.
Really works. Like it makes us both feel much better. So that's kind of on repeat in my house all day
Oh,
long.
that's great that you turned it into a little song for her. That
Yeah.
is wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, my other section that I love the most, because, as doulas, we love to hear birth stories. And I would love to hear your birth story, Natalia, if you were willing to share with us.
Yeah. Yeah. This is actually kind of the first time I'm talking about my birth like this, but um, yeah, I had a home birth in
Okay.
Brooklyn.
Hmm.
Ash was my doula, and
Yeah.
Um, so Ash was there, my husband Roger was there, and my midwife Tanya Wills was there, and she had an assistant Jennifer, who we also met through the collective.
Collective. Yes.
Um, and that was just a coincidence that she was the assistant that was
The
on
one on call.
that night. But I am very happy with who the team ended up being, because I just knew everybody so well, and I felt so safe. It took about 24 hours almost, kind of time
Mhm.
from start to end. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Um,
Mhm.
I kind of labored through the night on my own. And, after kind of having the transition contractions, the early contractions, definitely, like, looking back, I know they were nothing, but it was still hard to kind of like
Mm-hmm.
be on my own through the night. I didn't wake up Roger because I just didn't feel like I needed him, and I just kind of, as we always tell people, try to sleep, try to rest,
Yes.
and so that's what I try to do. I couldn't really do any of like sleep at all, but I just tried to kind of keep myself resting as much as I could. And then about like 4 or 5 in the morning, I just like yelled and called Roger from the living room, and he like woke up like all confused, and I said, "Okay, I need you, just stay by me." And then maybe around 1 o'clock, I called you, Ash, or Roger called you. And we also called Tanya. And I was, at that point, I knew I still had like a long way to go, but I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted them there because I just felt
Yeah.
like I needed to feel safer. And I really wanted to get in that pool. And for some reason, I just thought I needed to have permission to do that. And so then, yeah, they got there, and I labored in the water for a long time, which was wonderful and really hard too. And, as a doula, I feel so lucky that I knew everything I knew before, but I was definitely in my head with some things.
Yes.
So there were some things
Mm-hmm.
that were kind of like stuck in my head that I kept waiting um, for them to happen. Like I was waiting to see blood as a sign
Yes.
of, okay, labor is progressing,
Mm-hmm.
waiting, and I never did. So that was definitely kind of like in my head of like, oh my gosh, like I'm stuck, like nothing's
Yes.
ever gonna happen. I'm never gonna have this baby. I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. And then um there was definitely a moment where I was like, okay, I'm done. Like I'm losing it. Like I cannot just do this anymore. I don't think I couldn't really say any of these things, but they were all kind
Yes.
of going through
And
my
in
head.
your head.
But I was lucky that Ash was there, and she knows me so well, and she was like, hey, like I think you could tell that I was just kind of like not like doing well, and she told me something that I had said to her at some point for whatever reason. She told me, remember what you told me? And I was like, no, like, what are you talking about? She was like, you told me, remember, you're not gonna die. And that really kind of changed everything for me. Like, I was like, okay, I can do this. And then she put in this playlist
Yes.
that I had that was very kind of like trippy, like ceremonial music. And that really kind
Uh-huh.
of allowed me to let go and just kind of really dive in and not be afraid. And then
Mm-hmm.
eventually I just asked Tanya, I said like, okay, what are we doing? Because she was there, but she, never checked me or anything until
Uh-huh.
like I need to know what's going on because it's been too long. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. And so she was like, very tiny, like, okay, if you want, I'll check you, whatever, it's fine. And
Yes.
then she checked me and she was like, okay, you're, pretty much like fully dilated. So now just keep doing what you're doing. Like, wait. And I was like, okay, great. Like, I mean, I was in so much pain that I was like, okay, something's happening. Like, I'm actually
Yes.
gonna have a baby. And then I pushed for a really long time. Like, it felt like it was 5 hours. I don't think it was 5 hours. Maybe it was 3. Ash.
Mm.
Yeah. It was on
It
Yeah.
the longer side.
felt a long.
Yes.
It was really, really long. And yeah, eventually Tanya had me get out of the pool. She said, it's going to be easier if you get out of the pool. And I was like, okay, I'm out of here. And so I ended up pushing on the couch for a long time too. Um, and then, yeah, Maya was born like at 10 at night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was, of course, amazing when she came out and the pain was gone. And I knew she was just here and safe. We didn't know she was a girl. So it was very special when Roger said, it's a girl. We actually thought she was going to be a boy.
Uh-huh.
And so Roger said, it's a girl. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? It's a girl? um, and yeah, it was wonderful to just be able to do it at home and to, go from the couch to my bed. Ash, maybe the best smoothie I've ever had in my life.
There goes that nutrition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, everybody kind of left around 1, I think, in the morning. And Roger fell asleep, and I just stayed in bed in awe of what had happened, like
Uh,
breastfeeding and just looking at and I was so tired, but I could not sleep because I was so,
of course. Yeah.
the hormones, right? Like, it's
Yes.
true. You do
Mm-hmm.
feel
Mm-hmm.
crazy afterwards.
Yes.
The hormones like picking, and I was like, what's happening? Like,
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe how amazing it all had been.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So, Ash, how was it to support your best friend through this?
Oh my God, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, what if I'm a terrible doula? What if like, I can't, like that. I was like, maybe she should have someone else do it just in case.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but it was, I mean, the most special birth. I don't have children, so it remains the most special birth that I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's a freaking badass. That baby
Definitely
counted
is.
for a long time.
That all that
That was
pushing.
part of it.
Yeah.
She did. I was very, very, very proud, and had zero doubts at any point in time that she wasn't going to do it. Like, that I went in knowing, like, this will happen, like, no problem. She's going to be, that I actually really felt that
Yeah.
at the time. So, yeah.
Oh,
It's very
thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your time and your stories with me. Again, I cannot wait for people to hear about this book and to get the information out there. It is incredible. It really is. I'm so proud of you, ladies, and this is
Thank
just
you.
an incredible read. Congratulations